Welcome everybody to the Gesmer Updegrove's roundtable discussion with a group of very talented founders. My name is John Cohan. I'm a corporate attorney here at Gesmer Updegrove, and I'm here to share my panel here. Hopefully some roadmaps and some secrets that they went through as founders of their original companies. And with that, I'm going to allow each one of them to introduce themselves, get themselves a little bit of background, and I will start with you, Sarah.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I'm Sarah McIlroy. I am a serial entrepreneur is probably the best way to put it. I really love getting in and kind of making order out of chaos and scaling businesses, primarily in the consumer space.
So Charlie Saponaro, great to be here. Been a long-term client of Gesmer. And early in my career, started in venture capital, private equity, did a consolidation, private equity-backed space, and then did a search fund, bought a healthcare company, ran that for 13 years, exited, and now I'm doing a startup using AI in the app space.
Dave Rubinstein, I'm the CEO of RTC, stormwater technology infrastructure company, and a serial entrepreneur, having co-founded my first firm in 1985. Been through an IPO, bankruptcy, and a bunch of M&A. Made a lot of mistakes along the way, and when I'm given the opportunity to help others avoid it, I value that opportunity. So thanks for having us.
That's great. That's key. And that's exactly what we want to do here today. I think we want to let them know sort of what we went through, right, as founders, and then figure how do they kind of avoid some of these, maybe some of the missteps here and there, right? So I want to start at kind of maybe what I'm calling a low point, but we'll build it from there. And that low point is, and I'll turn to you, Sarah, and ask you, what was one of the early assumptions about building your company that actually turned out to be wrong?
Well, when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I really didn't know anything about the VC space. I didn't know anything really about how financing worked. I had a really wonderful product, and I very quickly learned that it's not only about the product. I would say my key learning was it's really about the product, the business plan, the numbers, investing in much more than just the product. And you know, I think building a business is incredibly challenging. I knew it would be, and I knew I had an unbelievable product. We had clothing that girls could design and wear, and we actually manufactured that. We figured out so many issues and challenges and how to do that, and then you need to market it. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned. It's really not just about the product. You need to have all assets, you need to be investing in a lot of different areas to really make a business sustainable and scalable.
Yeah, it's like thinking in 3D, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You think you figure out one thing and then
yeah, and then
another.
it's whack-a-mole, right? Something else is gonna.
Yeah, I ran into a similar problem in the go-to-market strategy. So early on, being in the engineering world and particularly in the water sector, they're late adopters of technology. So part of our product development strategy was to make this product friendly for the engineering firms to use. So similar to how, say, Oracle Manufacturing came out just for manufacturing firms and they got the consultancies to jump on board, we felt the engineering firms would do the same. We were way too early, probably about 10 years too early. They're still trying to figure out their digital game. So we invested a lot of product development in that manner. It does benefit how we do our implementations, but it didn't create the uptick in revenue that we were hoping for.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a tough pivot.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of, it could be great, but when it's not, you got to figure out how do you pivot to that next,
you got to get to know your audience better than assuming.
Exactly. Charlie, how about you? You've been through a lot of different startups and a lot of, bumps in the road, I'm sure. What can you tell us about
a lot of
those assumptions?
I'd say it's so much growth, how hard growth is, right? And it just, you'd think, hire some salespeople, hire some marketing people, spend money on marketing. It should be easy, but it's just so much more complex than that. And the ability to really fine tune an engine and make something that's predictable and scalable is really, really hard. And I 100% underestimated how difficult that would be.
I can imagine. I mean, just because it's, you're involving humans, right? You've got to figure out when's the right time to bring in the right people, which kind of leads to the next topic I want to talk about, which is when did you actually realize from the ground up, when did you realize that now you got to bring on some folks that can really be meaningful and add value to your team, especially on the leadership or the executive level? David, I'll start with you.
Well, it was when we really saw that we had a product market fit. And so then go-to-market became an even bigger issue. And the challenge we have is it's a B2G market. So it's 18 months to 5 years to close a deal.
Right.
So I'm looking at, do I go and hire a VP of finance, or do I have, like, our strongest sales performer? Does he have the mindset to be able to step up to it? But that caused me to look at the entire leadership team. So I actually spoke with Steve Snyder here at Gesmer, and he turned me onto a leadership development program, and we spent a year. And people fell out of it.
Right.
It kind of separated the wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
Sure. Yep.
And it's worked out pretty well, but it's something I'm constantly assessing.
Right. Right. I mean, it's a flowing or an everything flowing kind of process that you got to go through. Sarah, how about you? You started very early in the startup, right?
Yeah.
And then had to realize, wait a minute, I need some help, right? When was that?
Well, actually, I think every company that I've started, obviously starts very small. I think for me, I feel like you realize you're the bottleneck when everything is coming through you for approvals, whether it's, tiny little operational questions, hiring, inventory management, financials, everything was coming through me for a very long time. And you really need to bring on, experts who can own an area and really thrive. I find that it's so important to have great leadership around the table, and it's something that it's always hard, especially if you're a bootstrapped company, to really make that investment and decide when that time is. But it's often too late by the time you actually bring someone on. You really got a need that needs to be fulfilled.
It's funny. I work with a lot of founders that they start off, they want to continue to grow, but sometimes they can't let go, right, of that control aspect, thinking that, I'm here, I started this, I can do everything, right? But then they find themselves almost drowning because they
tap out.
they can't, they tap out, they can't do all of that, right? I'm sure that's probably part of what you've been going through at times, Charlie.
Great thing about today is that you can rent instead of buy. So there's so many fractional people that are out there now. That was never the case before. So I think one of the other parts of it too is just knowing what you need. You might be like, I need a finance person, or I need a marketing person. And you don't really know what you need because you're so in it, right? And finding someone that has the right chemistry, the right experience, who's going to make a difference. And today there's so many fractional people out there that have phenomenal backgrounds, and you can try them out for, 8 hours a week or whatever it is. And, you just need to get out there, network, find the right people. And then from there, you can kind of dial into what you need and don't need. And then if you need an FTE, you can, ask that person, or you can take that profile and go out and hire someone. But that, especially for early stage companies today, it's a great way to kind of test the market and then slowly bring in better talent.
David, you brought up a good point about, I know this is probably a shameless plug for Steve, but Steve was an outsider looking in, right?
Yeah.
How many times can you have, I think the value is having an outsider looking in saying, this is great, Charlie or Sarah or Dave, but you need to think about these 3 other areas that you may be blind spots for you.
I have a fractional person right now that I'm paying that Steve introduced me to.
Okay, well, there you go.
So
Right, and Steve actually helped connect me with a variety of fractional people as we were growing Opti.
Right.
So, tremendous value in those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's made a big difference in the marketplace, the kind of, as you say, Charlie, the rent to own kind of thing, right? I mean, there's very little, I think, to lose on that front.
But there's the economic piece, right? If you hire an FTE, like if you go out and you bring on someone that's meaningful, it's expensive, and then you're really committed to that person. It's hard to rip them out and put them back in.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just it's so much easier to fractionally do it.
Yeah, legally it's a problem too. I know that. So
Well, and I think it's an important point here is fractional people typically have a lot of experience.
Right.
So don't get concerned about what their hourly rate is. Take a look at what the value is that they could bring in that hour. the pattern recognition
Yeah,
they have, the
100%.
contacts they have.
Right, exactly,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I think one other key part about that is it's almost for us anyway, as a small startup, you're changing. Your company is almost a different company every single year. So your leadership needs really change, and I think it's really important to be able to kind of read the market, read your own business, and understand what could be adding value.
So now that you have kind of the right so-called team in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
In your view, from a financial and operational discipline, let's break that down into two of them: financial and operational.
Okay.
The financial piece, what part of the financial piece, I guess, in the growth aspect has made the biggest difference in your company?
Well, it's looking at modeling and how we forecast, and I like to understand it from a GAAP perspective because we're trying to build enterprise value, but I also want to see it from a cash perspective,
Right.
so that we ensure that we're preserving our cash properly. And in our business, we carry a lot of subcontractor costs, so understanding the various margins and what kind of levers can we pick and pull to try to squeeze more out down to the bottom line.
Right, right.
Is something that we had to get after early on.
Sure. How about you, Sarah? From either, let's talk about financial, sort of the financial discipline that was required to kind of get you to that next level.
I mean, consumer businesses are capital intensive. Our margins are typically quite tight.
Right.
I think some of the simple things that make a big difference, having dashboards that the entire team can look at and see how are we tracking? Are we tracking to our sales goals this week? What are the upcoming goals? How are we doing on traffic conversion dollars? Certainly from a cash flow perspective, having weekly updates, to walk through and just make sure we're in a good place, with our cash flow.
Sure. And then operationally, that kind of feeds into financial and vice versa, right? So from an operational discipline, Charlie, sort of what for you has made the biggest difference in that kind of that growth spurt for your company?
Financially?
Yeah. Well, let's start financially, and we can get to operation.
Yeah. I mean, financially, you really need confidence and you need visibility.
Yeah.
And, that's an area where, again, I would, spend money on fractional people that have a lot of expertise, because especially if you're going to grow and if you're eventually going to take on investors or debt, you've got to have accurate financials and you've got to be confident in that. And you also need to be confident in your projections, right? So, which gets into the operational side.
Yeah, exactly.
And to Sarah's point, metrics measure everything, right? So, I mean, you've got to have KPIs that everybody sees. And there's some that maybe are just for management, but I think transparency on what's important to the organization is really critical and important.
Yep.
And just tracking as many things as you can, or the most important things.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, operationally, you're going to see kind of where the weaknesses are, I would assume, right? Depending on what that financial picture looks like, right? So they sort of one feeds into the other, I think. For you, Sarah, operationally, I mean, so you're in retail, so that's probably more of an inventory sort of thing you've got to, piece you've got to worry about. Sort of how does that play in, and then how does that play back to the financial piece?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, to answer your question about operationally, what made a big difference in our business, two things. In the current business that I'm running right now, we opened up a Peru office, actually. We do a lot of our manufacturing down in Peru. We happened to open that up in 2022. We hired a general manager down there and a team down there to really nurture the relationships with our vendors, make sure the quality is good, make sure the deliveries are on time. That has been a game changer for us. We have a lot of confidence in everything that we're bringing in. In addition, now with all the tariffs and all the challenges, we are a global business, so we've been able to ship directly from Peru to Asia and to other countries, which has been really a game changer for us.
That's great.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I mean, boots on the ground, right? Yeah. In different areas of the world are going to make differences just because of culture differences and the way people operate and the way they work, and then trying to get them to, essentially go with your plan and what you're trying to accomplish, right? So it's a bit of a challenge, but at least if you've got those boots on the ground that live there, that know that how that geography and that culture works, probably really, really helpful, right?
So I think one of the things I know for me early on that was really helpful was from an operations standpoint is using a system like an EOS or Rockefeller Habits. There's a variety of them out there that really give you a blueprint or a roadmap on how to run the operations of pretty much any business. And it's a game changer for any inexperienced operator, entrepreneur.
Let me ask you, Charlie, how much background do you have to have in order to make that work? In other words, it needs the information input, I would imagine, right?
It's very simple. And so, I mean, they take from, Covey and Collins and all these great authors, and they put these systems together. You can read the book, you can watch YouTube videos. Now there's softwares they've come out with to help you run your organization on these platforms. And it has things like right people in the right seats and scorecards and visions and values. And it's a great system. There's a bunch of them out there, but EOS is something I recommend.
Nice. I like that.
And I agree with that. I mean, Charlie's been helpful. We were comparing EOS versus scaling up. We landed on scaling up, and I'm not knocking EOS, but for what we needed at the time. So, with the depths of COVID, we went from 21 people to 7.
Yeah.
Okay, handling 70 customers around the country, hoping nobody floods.
Right.
But what we've decided was from scaling up, we needed to do some things to ensure as we did scale back up, we were able to bring people back in. So we did 2 things. We created a life cycle methodology. So from lead all the way to closing deals to how do we implement, how do we support. Anybody who comes on board now is indoctrinated into what we call WHAM, which is the Watershed Agile Methodology.
Okay.
Number 2, a very intentional culture program. We wanted to make sure we were hiring people with the right mindsets, but also that we had psychological safety within the company for people to speak up. So I'll put a little plug in. As an entrepreneur, look for your Massachusetts workforce grants. There's a lot of great consultants out there. The state is subsidizing up to $15,000 to $20,000.
Sure.
And so we brought in a company to help us set our culture, and we're in our 3rd year.
Nice.
And people, a customer will say, tell me about the culture at Opti to one of my folks, and they'd say, you got to come experience it. It's just something totally different.
David, I took your advice, and we actually have implemented our program too. We got our grant, and last week was the first training that we had, which was amazing.
Nice. That'll start to pay dividends.
Yes,
probably pretty.
definitely.
Well, people feel safe to speak up when they see an issue, even if they made the mistake.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have a cultural value. Blame is problem solving.
Sure. Yeah.
Bring it to the table. Let's learn and let's improve our systems.
Kind of the soft skills that most founders, when they're starting out, don't think about, right? It's like
No.
it's sort of innate, but you're not bringing it to the forefront.
They don't teach it anywhere.
They don't teach it anywhere.
And
Exactly
you're in the
right.
weeds too. I mean, you're just trying to get one foot in front of the other.
Exactly. You're so myopically
Right.
focused that you're not thinking, wait a minute, this could be made better, right? And how can we do that, especially with human beings, right? And then, Sarah, you were talking about deploying people in different areas of the world, right? So
Yes.
talk to me about that.
Yes. Well, one of the game changers for us was we were doing a lot of business in Asia, Japan, China, Korea. And we realized we were managing that business pretty well, but we could probably do it a lot better if we had a professional distributor over there who knows the territory, who knows the retailers, who knows really how to get things done where there might be conflicts. So we implemented really great relationships with distributors. We have agreements with them, and we've really been able to, it's really been a step function in terms of how those territories are performing for us now.
Yeah, it's amazing how, boots on the ground, that they have the familiarity, right?
Yes.
And they can operate in that different culture, different geography.
Yeah.
A lot better than we would think, because we're not there, right?
Yeah.
So, but having that is probably a huge help.
Yes, it's almost like the fractional
Right.
concept. You bring on the people who know things very well, get the smartest people you can, the most well networked, and it really makes a difference.
Right, exactly. So we sort of pushed ahead. I want to come back now. We talked about, some of the assumptions that were made. We talked about building a leadership team. Talked about some of the disciplines, both operationally and financially. But now I want to step back and think about, okay, how did you think about when it was time to raise capital, right? Which is always kind of near and dear to founders and becomes your second full-time job, I would imagine, right? Trying to do that.
Yeah.
So how did you decide or that when it was the right time to start that? Dave, I'll start with you.
So early on, we actually spun out of the civil engineering firm,
Okay.
which was a tremendous move for both parties. So there was some seed capital put in just to get things rolling.
Yep.
But as you get to understand your product market fit, your sales cycles and whatnot, it was when we saw we needed some growth capital in order to be able to handle these extensively long sales cycles. And as I would talk to other peers in the industry who were selling to governments, I'd say, so how do you forecast? And people would literally swear at me and say, you can't forecast government business. And now
Yeah, right.
I'm pig-headed. You have to be able to. You got to be able to find
Yeah, there's
trends.
got to be a way, right? Right.
It's a beast.
Yeah.
Right. So being able to preserve that capital to withstand these long sales cycles was our number one mission.
Right. Gotcha.
I think every company is different. And it's interesting. The first company that I started, I really wanted an investor to help build it. I wasn't sure if I should go the angel route or the VC route. Ended up going a little bit of a combination of both. And I really wanted that in place to really leave my position at a company and really go wholeheartedly into that. The business that I'm running right now, we've been bootstrapped, and we don't have outside investment, but we have been working with the bank for debt financing.
Yeah, it's a cheaper form of capital,
Yeah.
probably, right? Than giving away equity. It can be at
Yeah.
least, right? Charlie, how about you?
So I've dealt with institutional and high net worth investors in several different scenarios, and every stage of company is different on when you're going to need them, and
Right.
I think you generally got a pretty good sense. That gets back to that finance discipline too, and knowing kind of your projections and what you need and don't need. But I think the most important thing I would say is don't just pick money.
Yeah.
So with investors, you're going to have hard times no matter how successful your business is.
Yep.
And if you've got investors that are difficult, that just makes things 10 times harder.
Right. Right.
And
Call that
so-
smart money, right? It's like you want the money, but you also want the resources and the ability to work with these people, right? I mean, that's huge.
I mean, ideally it is smart money and they bring more than just, capital to the table.
Right.
But just, making sure you've done your due diligence on, what it's like to work with those investors. Because some people can be very difficult. I've experienced that, and it can be brutal.
Well, you bring up a really good point, and that is, I call it reverse diligence, right? You're doing diligence on the financing source, because as you say, if they come to the table and they turn out to be difficult, I have experienced companies that have imploded because of that, with a really good technology,
Yeah.
really good idea, and a really good way to execute on it. But the board couldn't get along because, these folks parachuted in, and all of a sudden, they shook the snow globe, and everything went awry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen that too, Dave.
Oh, I mean, I had one board seat that just seemed that investor changed somebody every 9 months.
Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden you got this new set of opinions coming in, and the guy says, "Oh, your product's already done." Well, in software, your product's never done.
Exactly.
Right. Because you want to continue to grow your footprint.
Right.
But that put the kibosh on an investment we wanted to make, and the board said, "No, your product's done."
Right.
Right.
I mean,
The uninformed.
yeah, exactly. It can be dangerous, right? Let's talk about, we talked originally about kind of what a weakness that you found or an assumption that you made that was wrong, right? Now I want to talk about what's a decision you made that you think may have strengthened the company in a meaningful way, right? So, Dave, I'm going to start with you. What's the decision you made that sort of went that route?
Oh,
Or decisions, maybe.
I can think of several.
Yeah.
On the cost-cutting side, we just had a marketing organization that was not impactful. And as I dug into it, I found that we had a marketing leader who was more focused on their personal brand than the company.
Okay.
Now, when you have a 2-year sales cycle, cutting marketing can create a
Sure,
gap. But the team rallied together and said, "Yeah, we sent that team out the door."
Yeah.
And we did a bit of skunkworks marketing. But the thing that really got us closest to our customers, we're a software company. Everybody thinks of traditional support. We actually added a support offering called Operations and Maintenance. Because we're putting sensors into stormwater ponds and a lot of different technology,
Yeah.
a lot of customers didn't know how to handle it. And so we came up with an annual managed service that now quickens our renewals on the subscriptions. And we're finding more upsell opportunity, and our customers have better peace of mind.
Yeah.
But early on, the team was like, no, Dave, we do the software and then we're out. And I
Yeah,
said,
right.
"No, I think there's
more
good
to it."
revenue here,
Right,
but
right,
even
sure.
better customer relationships.
Yeah, exactly. Charlie, how about you? So what a hard decision that ultimately turned to a really big strength.
Yeah. So in my last company, it was a healthcare business, and we had one division. We had 3 different business lines, and one of those business lines, which was about 30% of the overall revenue, was probably taking up 80% of the operations. And it was just very draining from an HR standpoint, an operational standpoint. And so made the decision to divest and sell off that division.
Yep.
And I mean, it was a game changer for the company.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision, and it's a risk, right? Because you don't necessarily know where it's going to go. But when it
And
turns out
that
to be
was
so-
so the company was founded on that business line in like 1986.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of
Yeah, there's a lot of-
history,
yeah, sure.
and culture, but that was ultimately what was the right decision.
Well, with the pandemic, I think the market changed so dramatically. We were heavily in e-commerce at the time, and we saw writing on the wall that there were a lot of changes coming, and we had to make the very hard decision to prune our team basically so that we could bloom again.
Yep.
We basically, the goal was to really stabilize and build that foundation, kind of rebuild that foundation, and it was the best decision. I think we may have had some of the wrong people in
Yep,
place at
sure.
the time. I think that really kind of led us. We had a great year the next year. We exceeded plan, and we really did stabilize the business, and we've been able to bring on great leaders to really take it to that next level now.
Yeah, that's probably, I would think, one of the toughest decisions you had to make because you're directly impacting people's lives, right?
It's awful.
What you had to do. It really is. I mean, it's not easy to do that. But, again, sort of for the greater good of the company, you got to think, what am I going to do here?
Well,
right?
you need
Right.
to survive.
Yeah,
right? I
100%.
mean, you're going to
Yeah,
do
I mean, let's
no
face
good
it.
for anyone if
Yeah,
you're not around.
Of course,
So.
of course, right?
Like a sacred cow, right? Or
Yeah.
sometimes there's someone who probably needs to go, but it's hard to do culturally and operationally.
And
but-
the longer you keep that around, right, that cancer will grow, right? And then
Oh, totally.
it
and it
almost
sets a
becomes debilitating.
tone. People say, geez, they don't do anything about this person.
Right,
Right. And then that affects culture, right?
Listen, if you have somebody who's a great performer but they have bad behavior, that is a bad formula. in your
Yeah,
company.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of round it out with the gem of advice that each one of you might give to founders that are looking to at least prepare, maybe not quite get there, but at least prepare for either institutional or angel investors, right?
I actually would create a little board of advisors
Okay.
and find somebody who's been there, done that.
Right.
Legal perspective, financial perspective, the CEO perspective. Because you want to go in really tight and you don't want to be giving away too much equity.
Right.
So it can be daunting if it's the first time you're going through this experience. Don't go it alone.
Yeah.
Strengthen yourself
Right.
with a complementary team.
Right. And that advisory team can become more ingrained into the fabric if they determine they want to move on with the company, they want to
Yeah.
continue to help. Maybe they become a board member later, right? Or
Right.
maybe they do some other function within the company. They perform some other function and become more of a role, a direct role in the company.
Yeah.
I've dealt with clients that have done a lot of that, which is really, really helpful.
Well, I would add on to that. I couldn't agree more. When I was raising money, I took every single meeting I could possibly get. I wasn't at all in that space, so it was all about networking and meeting who you could. I feel like you can get a nugget of information from every meeting that you take. And even if you just get that little bit, you're stronger for it. And then the other note I would have is just that Charlie mentioned it. It's a long journey. You're going to have good and bad times with whoever you end up working with. It's a lot of time investment if you're going to develop and nurture that relationship, and you really need to have that trust. But it's a long journey, so you really have to prepare yourself for some
the
tough
marathon, not a sprint, right?
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day. Charlie, bring us home. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I would say start early So if you think you're going to be raising money, don't wait until you need it, but start well before that so that you can start priming that pump, right? Go out, talk to people, create a matrix on what it is that you want in an investor, right? Beyond just the capital. I think for most entrepreneurs, it's like, I need capital. I don't really give a crap about the rest of it, right? But think about smart money, think about the characteristics you want in an investor, network, but start those conversations, talk to people about what are the terms and conditions people want, just educate yourself. And it's hard because when you're in the weeds and you're trying to build something, you don't have time to do that. But if you invest early on, it's only going to benefit you when it's time to actually raise capital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Having that plan.
So, Charlie, I'm curious because you've lived both sides of the desk.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you were on the finance side, VCs, early stage entrepreneurs come in and make a relationship and spend time over many months with a VC, so they get to know you, you get to know them. I don't see early stage people doing that, but that's something.
It's hard because you're so busy.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like if they're spending too much time with you, you're like, well, how come you're not spending time on your business? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I think there's a happy medium. And I think at a minimum, just staying on people's radar, and that's just good advice for any business person,
Right.
Right? Like I have some people, I have a coach I worked with who was great. I'm working with him anymore, but he'll send me a text every once in a while, like, hey, I just got to Philadelphia, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, and he pops back up on my radar. Right?
Yeah, right.
Right.
And so just quick updates, so go out, find people and then just say, hey, guess what? We just, achieved this milestone or we just did this and just stay on their radar.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend a ton of time, like, in person, but
Yep, sure.
but keep them posted with what you're doing.
I think part of it, David, may be
Smart.
generational too. I mean, this
Yeah.
new generation is, a quick fix, right? Instant gratification, but it's something where this taking the time, the planning, the starting early is, I think, timeless, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
something you have to do. I call it professionally tenacious, right? You have to have some level of tenacity that is going to take time, and it's not something that's going to be done that's an overnight delivery kind of thing, right?
Right.
I would also say just be yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Authenticity goes up.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. And if you don't know things, that's okay. Say you don't know it.
Right. Yeah,
Ask dumb questions, right?
right.
Which there are none, right? But don't try to put on this persona or whatnot, and because the more authentic you are, the more people will want to invest in you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, my three founder panelists here. For your time is very valuable, and I'm really lucky to have spent some time with you guys, and as are our viewers.
Appreciate it.
So we appreciate it very much. So
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us here at Gesmer, and see you next time. So thank you for watching. Please feel free to follow us on social media. You can like, comment, or subscribe. And please go to our website, gesmer.com.